Good evening. Welcome to the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 8th, and the time is 5:30. I would like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on the agenda is the approval of the September 10th, 2025 regular meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 10th, 2025 regular meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Are there any corrections, additions, subtractions? If not, all those who would like to vote to approve the minutes of September 10th, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? No, the motion carries. Next on the agenda is delegations, where members of the public could address the Board of Finance on any of the items that are on our agenda tonight. I see people from the Board of Ed, but no public, so I think we can move on to reports. First up is our first selectman, Mr. Cunningham.
Thank you. Okay. Here we go. Guess you can hear me. Not too much to report tonight, but a couple of things that I think are very important and that will be facing the board later on. We did have an update on our police radio system, and I know that's been a topic of conversation over several meetings and years. There was a situation that we had about $430,000 worth of radios sitting in a box in a warehouse for the last 4 or 5 years. And Chief Glenn, when he was sworn in the next day, he ordered that they be delivered to the town of East Lyme. They were delivered. And there was a question if they were worthwhile to even, could they be useful? Because we'd been told that there was a software glitch and you couldn't program them. They're in the process of all being programmed. They will be, probably another week or two, they will be functional. They'll be able to be distributed to the police officers and to the fire service. It'll allow them to communicate with the tower that will allow them to also communicate with each other. It will go a large way to solve our communication problem that we've had for all these years. There's a cost, of course, to programming them, maybe in the thousands of dollars to program each one. Each radio is worth about $8,000 handheld, and there's some that go in the vehicles. But this will be the beginning of solving our radio communication problem. It'll allow us eventually to get to the state of Connecticut system. It'll allow them to communicate with each other. It'll increase by about 60% coverage, and I don't know how else you describe it, the power of the radio. So we've been offered $25,000 for the whole lot to trade them in, but we were actually able, they work fine, they're going to be great, and we're going to be able to use this asset. So I'm very happy to report that to you. The next phase later on eventually will probably require a tower, but probably only one tower. And instead of $6 million that you heard, maybe read in the paper that Waterford spent, we may be able to do it for really somewhere closer to 1.5 million eventually, and we'll build that into our capital plan. But we are going to be able to get to where we need to go, and we're already well on the way to get there. So I'm very happy to report that. Yes?
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Is there any chance that these radios could be also used to communicate with the fire department and also with other towns if we need to coordinate some kind of a response?
So that is the goal for being on the state of Connecticut system. As I understand it, these radios you can switch from one frequency to another so that the fire service can actually communicate with the police department. And once we're on the state system, we'd be able to communicate on any other municipality that's on that state system. So that's why it's so important and an important goal to get to the state system. But this is going to get us halfway there. And we're a lot closer than we ever thought we were. And they were sitting on a box for 4 years.
Just maybe for Kevin, I don't have the CIP in front of me, but is there any cost avoidance? Did we have any projects in the first, coming up next year that we had been planning on to address this situation? Yeah.
It's opening up right now. We do have. It's taking a second to open. It is. We are still anticipating needing about 1.5 million to finish, or at least continue the radio project. Let me see what we have in the police for next year. I do. I do not see any large project for radios. Let me look up public safety. No. So in the past year, we just did 650,000 for public safety communications infrastructure. So we're still in the process of seeing, finalizing the number in the upcoming capital projects request list, and seeing how much of that 650 can offset, the rest of the project.
Okay. I was just wondering if it was going to have an impact on this year's budget. Any cost avoidance that would.
In 26's budget, like operationally,
Yeah.
I don't think we anticipated buying new radios in the budget. So if anything, there might be some savings of saying, okay, well, we put money aside 2 years ago, 300,000 for a radio tower. That money's still sitting there. We did an additional 100,000 last year for the radio tower. So there's 405,000 already allocated for radio towers. So if it's costing, $1.5 million to build a radio tower, we would probably offset the 1.5 needed with that 400. If that 405 is still there.
And if that's the number for the time, that's just a round number, it's just a
Very
very,
preliminary.
yeah.
Well, I better since I was on that committee that recommended them, so nice to know. And then Rich as well, work didn't go for naught.
No, they're good radios, and they're going to be able to be programmed. The only thing is, so that everybody has a radio, we're about 8 short, so, or 10 short. It's going to be about 80,000 to get 8 more radios or 10 more radios to equip everybody. But, the savings overall, rather than trading these in for 25,000, to actually be able to use them and make it's a usable asset now. I'm really very happy about it. That's all I'll say more. We did have a meeting with the Chief Glenn and the some members of the Board of Ed and the superintendent. I don't want to say too much about it because it involves school security, but we are meeting, and the topic is school resource officers, so that is being discussed. But that's about all I'll say about it, that we did have a meeting. And it was a very insightful meeting, and some ideas being talked about. And the fireboat, the Boston Whaler, it did a second rescue. So in about 4 weeks, it's made 2 rescues. So happy about that. And, I saw New London, or I think it was New London, they're looking for a hard-bottomed boat to augment their fire service. So, yeah, we're ahead of the game a little bit. So I'm happy about it. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Rich?
Yes, Dan, the programming of those radios, will that meet the requirements to be on the state system?
That's the whole reason those radios are consistent with what the state will allow us. Yes, we'll be able to use those into the future. I don't want to say 8 years into the future or 10 years, but these radios are what we will need when we go to the state system. So they're not going to be looking to replace the radios. These are the ones. These are going to do it.
Right.
At least that's my understanding, yeah.
I'm just asking
Yeah.
that we met all the requirements to get onto the state system.
I mean, I don't want
Once
to.
we get the tower.
I don't want to represent that. We haven't met all the requirements yet, but this is a large step to meeting the requirements so that we can get onto that system. This was a key piece, and we already had it. So, yeah.
Question, please. So I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole, but I'm just curious about the tower that you're talking about building. Does it have to be for exclusive police use, or could it potentially be used by maybe commercial signal conveyors that we could rent out space on it?
You know, I don't want to comment on something that I'm not anywhere near an expert on radio towers. And so I'll leave that for the experts. But my understanding, towers can be used for more than one purpose.
I'm just asking if it could be considered.
Yeah, I mean, you see, you see different arrays, antenna arrays up on towers, and they all pay different. So you physically build the tower, then you assemble hardware on the tower. So I'll leave that to the experts.
Anyone have anything else for Dan? No?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is reports from the Board of Education. So just a little background. In the past, the Board of Ed was a regular standing item on the Board of Finance agenda, but there was often sort of like, what exactly are we talking about? Like, what was the purpose of that? And then in the meantime, the state of Connecticut had passed a law basically requiring the Board of Ed to produce their quarterly financial numbers and provide them to the town, which, as the Board of Finance, that was really the main thing that was of interest to us. So we kind of said, unless there's something that we need to address, then we're happy to leave it at that, but obviously welcome at any committee. I think, after our last meeting, there was definitely a feeling that there wasn't the appropriate amount of communication between the Board of Ed and the Board of Finance on an important item. And, in speaking with Eric Bauman, the Board of Ed chair, felt like, we needed to kind of address the fact and say, well, we need to work together more closely. So I know you've presented or provided us with something on the Board of Ed non-lapsing fund. I don't know whether we can just sort of, I hate to leave you at the last item on the agenda. If you wanted to address it during this, that would be fine.
Actually, if we can keep it to last, because Jeff is running from another meeting, so it'd be good if he's here. So we actually worked out well that it's last.
Okay.
The one thing I would say with this is, if there are things that you want to hear, one of the challenges we have is, Jeff and I spoke. I think we need to come quarterly regardless. But us coming and us not knowing what to talk about, we're happy to come and just say, what questions do you have? Obviously, but I'm not really sure we're not sure what topics you want to hear. We know you don't want to hear that our boys soccer team is undefeated and has not let up a goal. That's great, but it's not something that you guys want to, for us to come with. We can talk about the topics, that we're talking about, and some of the strategic initiatives that we're thinking about that are more longer term. We can come talk about those. We can talk about, over the past handful of meetings, what were some of the key agenda topics, that we covered. And I don't need an answer now, but I think that would be helpful for us, because we just need a little direction, and then we can come forward with some slides and some presentation, and then open it up to any questions that you have or things that you've heard, and happy to have that. So that's what we were thinking, is come quarterly. If we get a little direction of things that you want to hear from, or even just we can give a summary of some of the key areas that we covered over the probably 4 or 5 meetings in between us attending, and we can talk what are the big topics, and see if anything sticks that, can you tell us more about that topic? But we're open to hearing what you want to hear from.
Well, of course, for 3 of us here, we've only got 1 more meeting left in our term, so
Right.
I think that will be something that the new Board of Finance would probably want to weigh in on. I'm very cognizant that our purview is the finances.
Yeah.
So just off the top of my head, I think one of the biggest issues is that the Board of Finance budget is a big part of the town's overall budget.
Yeah.
And anything, initiatives that you're undertaking to help to reduce the amount of increases each year, I think,
Yeah.
rather than saving that to the final, budget stuff. When we're in 8
Yeah.
zillion meetings
Yeah.
for a month and a half, I think that would probably be helpful.
Okay, and I think that kind of fits in well with a couple new committees that we have set up, which are looking may not impact next year, but are impacting in future years, because it'll take us a while to figure them out and then implement them as we do figure them out. But those could be things so you understand, what we're looking at in some of the longer term areas. That savings is not necessarily the driver, but we think that there's actually could enhance the way we deliver our education, and the secondary effect is there may be some savings as a result of that. So we could talk. Let's see, Jeff is here. Do you want to?
Yeah, you want to tie in?
Do you want to?
Sure.
It's up to you. It's up.
I was just thinking because you have to leave.
No,
this might
I'm
not
happy
be-
for Jeff to start, but I have a question if it's okay.
Oh yeah.
I just, I like the idea of you guys coming at least quarterly.
Yeah.
I sort of was excited that you guys are thinking of coming monthly. And I don't know that that's too much if we're trying to build a better relationship and work better together toward common goals. And I feel like if we ask you a question, say in January, you don't answer it until April, that feels like too infrequent to me. So
We can come as ad hoc as well. I think we were coming monthly way back, and I think it was not. It didn't work. Like there was not. We come here and we wouldn't know exactly what to say, or we talk about our soccer team or something like that, which wasn't. And you guys have other things on your agenda that you're trying to focus on, so that it didn't work. We're happy to come as often as it would be beneficial, and that's what we're trying to figure out as well. So maybe we can work together and figure out what is the right, and if it's monthly, we'll come monthly. As long as you help us understand, like, what do you want to hear?
I heard you.
Yeah.
Maybe if there's nothing to say, we cancel it, but we plan to have you.
Yeah, I mean, we're happy to come, so absolutely happy to come. Rich?
Yeah, Eric, I would like to follow Scott's remarks. I think the relationship isn't the most optimal right now, and to try to repair a relationship, I think the more frequent that we can meet, the better. I think monthly would be very good. Kevin from the town side gives us numbers as to how we're doing against the budget and how we're doing against the undesignated fund balance, etc. It seems as though most of the years in recent past, you guys have either implemented a budget freeze, hiring freeze, or the town has done that this last year as well as you guys. I think to know the fiscal health on a constant basis is probably a pretty darn good idea. And that way we don't end up in emergency situations. We can maybe make plans, things that are long-range goals, like the redoing of the football field and track when it was originally put in.
Yep.
It was supposed to be money put away each year for that, and lo and behold, that's not the case. So I think it's good right now to be able to keep in touch and be able to understand where each other is coming from.
Yeah, we're happy to work with you and we can try it out. Like, we can come 1 month, we can present on stuff, and then you can give us feedbacks like, yeah, those 2 items we really were good. That 3rd and 4th item, not necessarily that we need to hear more about that in the future. So we can start kind of framing what we bring to you is mostly what you want, but giving you, I mean, you get the financial report, but we can also talk you through the financial report and the analytics behind it and what's going on. If that's a primary, that's that's easy from the sense of it's clear, we know what to do, we're doing it anyway. We're happy to come and do that.
Right, and if I understand things correctly, Mariana and Kevin have a very good working relationship, and they could discuss what Kevin prepares for us each month, and it would be along similar lines. But just so the faces are together,
Yeah.
so the community can see the faces together and know that we work as a team.
Can I just add, the only thing we need to make sure we do, we need to make sure we're reporting information to the Board of Education first. So they're aware of anything that's being reported to the Board of Finance. So we should probably talk about that first before committing to any report outs. Again, happy to do that, but I know I've been asked in the past, can you share this? I mean, if I haven't shared it with the Board of Education, we're not going to share it out,
But if we come,
That's
just
understood.
we're
Right.
discussing it now, but if we come monthly, we can, our Board of Ed meets twice a month, so it might just be a few weeks in arrears, but we do,
Yeah,
to
as
Jeff's
long as
point,
it's-
we have to get, the Board of Ed has to hear things first, which is
Exactly.
but, so you might, if we have a January report, you might hear it in, we might go through it in February in your meeting, depending on the timing of our meetings and your meetings and stuff, and to come through, but then we're still having that conversation, and a few weeks is probably not going to move the needle much anyway in terms of influence and impact.
No,
that it can
and
have.
it's a big improvement over
Yeah.
quarterly
Yeah.
or never,
Yeah.
which we've just been getting written
Yeah.
reports.
Yeah, happy to do that. We'll
Thank you.
make it work, and between Mariana, Jeff, and myself, we can make that work. Now, do you want to go right into the,
Yeah, Dr. McAllister has to leave early, so if that's okay with everybody else, I think everything.
Does everybody have the packet that I
Yes.
emailed? Okay, if you don't, I have extra copies just in case.
So-
Okay.
so we thought it would be worthwhile, and we did, so we listened to, some of the questions that you had last.
Just a second here.
Yeah.
Is there something that can be shared electronically for viewers at home?
Well, I emailed electronically to you. I don't have it right now electronically.
Kevin, do you have it?
I have it. I can, if you switch to a wireless presentation, I will put
Thank
it
you.
on the screen. Alright.
Okay, great. So maybe to get started, so we listened and heard your meeting from last week or last month and went through, and I think a few things. We want to make sure that we clarify and provide some information for some of the questions that you had. And, in terms of the communication or the lack thereof of creating the account, creating the non-lapsing account, please put that on me. I thought we communicated it. If we did, we didn't do it very well because none of you knew about it. So, it's my responsibility to make sure that communication happens. So I, apologize for that. It was not done in a dark, smoke-filled room that we came up with this and wanted to hide it from the rest of the town. I promise you it was not that. We missed on the communication piece. So, I'll take full responsibility on that. In terms of, but it's important that the why we got there, I think, is really important. And so we can go through just quickly. You can look through, the first slide. Kevin, if you could just, or I don't know who's controlling it.
Yep, that was me.
Okay.
Hold on one sec.
Okay.
Slight delay.
The first slide just has a little bit of the history for what we have, quote
Excuse
unquote.
me, Eric, maybe just in case we have any viewers, do you just want to give a brief?
Of what the
it
account
is?
is? Yeah, sorry, yes. I'm sure there's a million people watching and waiting and can't wait.
Responses.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So what, a few years ago, can't remember the exact time, there was at some point there was created that there was an opportunity for the Board of Ed to create an account that if there was leftover remaining funds that were budgeted at the end of the year, they could create an account that instead of quote unquote giving it back to the town or returning it to the town, it could be put into a separate account that would be monitored and maintained. Actually, I'm not sure if originally it was not by the Board of Ed. It was the town would manage that account, but it was created so that the board could put funds into that account. It was something that we did bring forward to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance a few years ago to create that account. And it was at a time, if you remember, we were having, the Board of Ed had originally budgeted for health care, something like 5 or 6% increase, and the state increase ended up like 10 or 11%. So we had like a $600,000-$700,000 gap at the time, as we're thinking is we either need a special appropriation or we aren't sure how to solve it. Fast forward, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, my impression was they felt, look, we'll cover, if you get in situations like that, come to us and we can work through and help you and manage through that. Just giving you how the Board of Ed felt, so again, not stating facts, just how we felt, is that 700,000, and I'm digging into a little deeper into the presentation. In order for us to solve a $700,000 gap, we need to start in September. If we wait till December, we don't have levers to pull because most of our budget is people, so people are here, they're getting paid. Our biggest levers to find savings is supplies, freezing hiring. Those are some of our biggest levers to find. Now, we ended up freezing everything that year, and we were able to resolve it. Some was luck as well. We had a very warm winter. We had no snow. So our utility costs were way down. Our snow removal costs were way down from what we had budgeted. So between that and freezing everything, we did solve that $700,000 gap. And the reason I bring it up, so fast forward 2 years, the state changed the regulation to say that the Board of Ed can create an unexpended, non-lapsing account. I think it's used it's synonymous terms, but we were able to create without getting Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance approval. So as a Board of Ed, our feelings were, if we ever get in a situation where we're in trouble, like unexpected costs, it could be we have 10 snowstorms and we're paying for a lot of snow removal. It could be a very cold winter and our utility costs are way above our budget. It could be some special ed, some students move into town with high special ed needs, and that's not budgeted, and in that year we have to solve that gap. So things like that. We also have, last year or a year and a half ago, we had the boiler at the central office went, and that was really expensive. We had to get a temporary boiler, and then it was well over $100,000 to solve that issue. So when those things pop up, we don't have, our lever is we freeze supplies. That's what we do. And what that does is it has impact on teachers. It has impacts on the classrooms and the students, because and some teachers end up going and buying their own supplies, which is not really the way we want it to happen. So by creating this fund, and this is where the Board of Ed is, we feel like we have some cushion that when those things happen, those unexpected, unbudgeted items happen, we have a place to tap into without asking for a special appropriation, without freezing supplies, and we have a little flexibility in our budget to cover it. So that's why the Board of Ed created that account originally. We didn't know, looking at the first slide, we didn't know, over the years, we haven't had a ton of money that was free to put into that fund. You can look, forget the prior years, there was also some COVID money in there, so if you kind of get rid of the first few years and you look post, $1,700, $12,000, $5,000, $35,000. So the amount we've had at the end of the year has been relatively low. This year it was high, and I'll explain that to you, and I'm happy to go through that. But that's why, why did we create that account? Why did the Board of Ed do it? That was the rationale, that we have some cushion and some availability and flexibility, that if we were going to run hot for unexpected items, that we have some availability to tap into that. So then, one comment that came up that we did want to address was, our Board of Ed, as long as we can remember, I've been on the Board of Ed 10 years, Jamie's been on a lot longer than that, and since Jeff has been here, I'm going to say we've never had a special appropriation where the Board of Ed received additional funds. The part that, not exactly true, and the part that's not exactly true is we did get a special appropriation in the 2018-2019 fiscal year. What happened in that year is that was when we were not on the state plan and we were the health plan was still a self-insured plan. And the insurance broker provided to the previous finance director, Andrew Johnson, after our budgets were final, after everything was approved, changed the number that was needed for health care, not only for the Board of Ed, but for our towns. The overall, what our health care, self-insured health care plan needed in the account. So we end the town, it was $600,000. So the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance did appropriate to both the town and to the Board of Ed to cover that amount. But that, again, not something that we caused, it was a number that an outside broker provided late. We then had to push it through, and the Board. So we appreciate that it was covered. I'm not going to say that, but it is not something that we had an unexpected charge and it had come for an appropriation, and it was that the town and the Board of Ed both received. Basically, that amount was covered. The other, I talked about the creation, just seeing if there's any. I think those are, I think we covered indirectly, not in that order of what we did. And we're happy to answer questions, happy to go through. Right now we have $230 some odd $1,000. So this year we did have a few special ed students move into town that were high need special ed students. And that incremental cost was $500,000 for the give or take $500,000 that we did not have in our budget. So this goes, Rich, to your point about us coming to you. We would have communicated that we're freezing. We have to freeze everything, and we did freeze supplies. We had to freeze it to cover that amount. So we were able to cover it, but again, we're not the digital precision of once you start freezing and what the impact, we're not able to get digital precision on saying, oh, we're going to hit the number right on zero. And as the year, we were about in January, February, it looked pretty good that we're going to come on, and then by March, April, it's like, wait, we might be way under, but by that time you're way under. It's not that you can start buying and stuff. So that's how we ended up a few $100,000 under, is we froze everything. It is not a great business model of every year freezing supplies and trying to deliver the education to the teacher. That is not the model, but it's really our only lever once the year starts to find savings. So that's how we ended up $200,000. We did put it into our unexpended funds. I call it the non-lapsing account, but I'm not sure which is officially correct. And then to your questions about, well, could they start, how much money are they going to end up in this account, and what are they going to spend it on, and stuff. So we've been having conversations at the Board of Ed about that. Right now we have limits of 2% in a given year, 4%. 4% we put in as initially way back of saying, well, we have to have some maximum. That would be 1.2 plus or minus million in a given year. We could have an account with $2.5 million, which is pretty significant. These are discussions we're having about, what is the right amount. Like, those numbers are pretty high. I have my opinion, but I think we have 9 other board members with different opinions, and we're trying to sort through what's the right amount. Technically, nothing until August of next year, nothing is going to happen, but it is something that we're trying to kind of work through and come up with what we think is a number that we can work with, and then we can bring it to you and kind of talk through, here's how we got to the numbers that we're thinking about, and putting the limits, the annual limit and the kind of balance sheet limit, or the total limit. And then the other question is, how are you going to spend the money? And what I can say, we're still having discussions, but the general thought is, one is to have some money set aside for unexpected increases so we don't have to come for an appropriation. And then 2 is unexpected repairs, maintenance, or special ed costs, things that not in the budget. The student moves into town, the boiler goes at the at central office, things like those. I think we're still discussing. I think we have general agreement from the Board of Ed, among the Board of Ed members, that those type items are where we can go to this and not have to stop and freeze our supplies. So I spoke for a long time. I'm happy to take questions, but that's kind of the thought process that we went through.
Yeah, I just have a couple. So, like, one of the things, by keeping the money over there, it's not in the town's general fund being invested each day. So, do you have plans on investing the funds?
So we've had to. It's actually, there's 2 parts to that, right? One is it's also not in the fund, the undesignated fund balance from a credit rating agency rating. So that is something that we've talked about as a Board of Ed, both the, hey, we have to recognize, we think about how much we have in this, we also have to recognize that it's not necessarily part of that undesignated fund balance. We're hoping in a credit agency discussion that this could be kind of brought up and say, hey, we also have this amount. Not sure how they'll take that, but it is something. But that is something we've talked about, as well as. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I guess my specific question is: do you have the wherewithal to actually invest the funds?
Oh yeah. So I know we talked about this on Monday with Mariana, and I think let me give my quick opinion, and then my quick opinion is, okay, it's $200,000, and it's for things that we may need it. So I personally would not want to lock it up in anything that would be, but I think it's in a money market now, or we'll be in a money. Okay, yeah, I'll let Mariana talk, because we did talk about this. Do you want to just mention where it is?
Again, for the audience, we put it in the State of Connecticut Short-Term Investment Fund, which is like a money market mutual fund,
Right.
and you have immediate availability. So,
Right. So, Mariana Stevens, Director of Finance, and then just so that I don't know if you're familiar, I was a finance director at area towns for over 20 years, so I am familiar with investing funds. Right now, they just voted to put the money in place, so it's still sitting at the town. We have not moved the money yet, because I can't have just a zero balance account. It's going to be moved to Chelsea Groton, an interest-bearing account, and then I will look into various investment options. However, as Eric said, depending on what we are going to use the money for, it probably will be something exactly like that. I mentioned the STIF account, which the funds would be readily available, carries a higher interest rate.
thank you. But I guess my other just comment is maybe it would be helpful for the Board of Ed to work with Kevin and our financial advisor to see, what impact this could have both on, what any experience they have with the impact on our credit ratings if those funds are not available. I don't know whether, I know there's a number of towns that have already adopted this. I don't know whether they've been around long enough to have, if you think if we keep accumulating these funds there,
Yeah.
and they're not in our fund balance, then, like right now, our policy is we're trying to maintain or get to 17%, and with our projections already, we're going to start slipping below that. So
No, we're absolutely happy to work with Kevin and Financial Advisor and think about it holistically. And I think that some of the conversations that we'll be having at the Board of Ed as we start kind of there's two limits, right? There's the annual amount, and then there's the lifetime amount that accumulates. And we do need, ceilings on each of those. And, right now they're pretty high, which the six of you are probably should be and are concerned with how high those are. Because for us to be sitting with $2.5 million in an account, I could see that actually has implications not only for our town and our budget, but also for our teachers and educators who are something like, well, why do you have all that money sitting there, and shouldn't I be getting some of those? How is that working? So we definitely have to talk that through, as a Board of Ed, but we'll work, happy to work with you and think that through. We also have to think, just so you understand the thought process of Board of Ed is we're trying to figure out what to spend it on, and there's two ways to do that. One is, come up with a list and everything. The other is a little bit is, well, let's see what comes forward and see what does the Board of Ed want to spend. When something comes forward, do we say, vote yes, we want to do that, or no, that we shouldn't be using these funds for that. That can also help define. Nothing changes, that 200,000, nothing can change for almost 11 months from now is the next time it can change unless we bring it down. I mean, in terms of going up, it can't change until the end of the next fiscal year. So in terms of decisions, it's really about how we're going to spend this versus those limits.
and
Yeah.
Just want to add one point that we don't forget. For legislation too, it's required that we share out to our unions what the amount is that we have in the account at the end of the year, what we're spending it on, and I would highly recommend, and I think everybody would agree, that we have reporting to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance as to what we might be spending the money on, and that is where we can either do that through coming to you during different meetings, or at the end of the year, that final report that we have to provide to unions, we would provide as well. So.
And the money can be used on capital improvement projects, right?
Educational, capital, yes.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking, tying that in with the capital improvement committee, that, have that be part of the discussions at those committee meetings as well.
Yeah.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the regulator, it's pretty broad on what we can spend, what it can, it's for educational purposes, something along those lines, which it's close to 100% of what we do is something with educational purposes. So I think it's pretty broad. We might try to narrow the definition of what we're trying to spend it on. And one thing it's still been discussion, but I think one of the things that I think the other board members that we're all in agreement on is not to spend it on something that's an ongoing cost. Like, oh, well, let's fund a teacher this year, and then we're talking to you in the budget. It's like, well, we funded that teacher. Now we need the town to fund it in future years. So it really is those one-time type costs that the purpose of this fund. That's what we've broadly talked about. Rich, yeah.
Yeah, Eric, I think it's important to really clearly define this term educational purposes. As you mentioned, and Jeff chimed in too, it's a pretty broad descriptor. And, I think people would be happy to see, capital improvement that serves the educational purposes, but to maybe revamp a soccer field, maybe not so much. So I would really appreciate having a more defined terminology. The other thing too is it's hard enough to explain to taxpayers what our undesignated fund balance is and why why we have it and why it's important. A large number of those taxpayers, and I'm not one of them, have some strong feelings that maybe we're spending too much of the budget on the school. And for the school to then have another, quote, rainy day fund might just seem a bit much to people.
Mhm.
Just trying to foresee public comment on this. And then the thing that I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Do you anticipate that your budgets are going to come out with excesses going forward, or are you going to look for budgets that hit the budget value?
Yeah, I heard that.
That's
I heard that
concern-
conversation
that's
last
a
month
concern.
at your meeting last month. It's a fair point. I mean, there is no way that we should. I mean, our budgets, and so a couple things. One is the reason we need to set these limits. The annual and the lifetime or the aggregate amount is because it does for the. I think it went dead. Oh no, it's back. The reason we need to have those limits is for trust with you, Board of Selectmen, and our town, that there's an understanding of what we're doing and the purpose of it. So to your first point about how we're going to spend it and what are the things that we're looking in the why. Why do you have this and what are you going to spend it on? And so I think as we as a Board of Ed have more discussions and really start to find that, which we're going to do, we had one on Monday and we'll continue to have those discussions. Hopefully we come around to something that's a little tighter in terms of both the amounts and the types of spend that we'd have. In terms of us budgeting, more than just so we can kind of fund this account and build it up. I mean, all I can say is my commitment that's kind of a part of dereliction of duty of what we do have fiscal responsibility is obviously providing a high quality education while being fiscally responsible. Like, I think it's both of those things. And I can say I personally, and I can speak, I'm sure, for Jeff, is like that is not something that we would ever want to do. We invite you to our budget workshops so you can go and see the sausage making of how we get to our number. And if there's things that you're looking at that seem like they have some fluff in the numbers, or they're too high, or we go through the budget conversations where you can challenge and ask and go through that. So I would hope through the deliberations and stuff it would come out, but it's hard. I don't know what we could do to allay that, to say, other than saying, we're not going to do that. I don't know, it's kind of trying to prove a negative.
I fully understand that.
I can just,
my work in
I think
the
the
past,
more we build a trusting relationship, and I think maybe us coming, as Scott said, coming more often,
Yes.
and you getting to know us and getting to know how we think about things and how we came up, that will build maybe a little trust that you can see that we're not going to do that. My commitment is we're not going to do that, but that and whatever, $5 get you a cup of coffee at
I'm sure
Starbucks.
with your fiscal background,
Yeah.
that you know that there's variances in budgets, and just as long as the variances are reasonable. If there's something that gets outside the standard errors, then we have some issues. But I don't anticipate that occurring. But just again, from talking to John Smith on the street,
Yeah.
there are questions.
And absolutely can understand, and definitely if this 200,000 all of a sudden grows to 2 million, it can raise a lot of questions, and I would think it would. I mean, I would, me not Board of Ed hat, my taxpayer hat would be asking that question as well. How did it get so you've over budgeted? Going back to that first slide, I mean, other than the first couple of years, those couple of years, one was COVID year and one, remind me, the 945, was that when we got the 2017-18?
Yeah, there was a mid-year freeze at the state, so.
Oh, yeah.
So the grant here, just in Connecticut for all
Yeah.
towns.
Yeah.
If you want to repeat.
Yeah, I'll repeat, yeah, so the state froze,
State funds.
state funds were frozen. The town asked I think both the town and the Board of Ed, you guys need to come in under, because we can't manage it. So, that was in 2017, 2018. That's why it's 945,000, as we froze everything in order to, and the town froze, but both the town and the Board of Ed froze everything because the state was not providing us the funding that we expected. So if you kind of take that year as an unusual year, the 2019, 2020 was COVID. We had COVID funds coming at us left and right. If you remove those two unusual years and you look after that, I mean, for the most part, there's a few thousand here. You just get to the end of the year and there's a few thousand left. Remember, we can't be $1 over. So that's the other thing. If we're $1 over, technically we should be getting an appropriation for that dollar. So you're always going to be under. We have a hard ceiling. So with a hard ceiling, you can only be under. So to see, a couple thousand, 12,000, 5,000, 35,000, that is going to be the norm, is that we're going to be slightly under every year. This was another unusual year, but it's really because we froze everything early because of some unexpected special ed costs and some other costs that came through. Yeah, Scott.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate the transparency, and this is the sort of thing I hope we can do on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, happy to, and happy to come in anytime for Jeff, Marianne, and I to do that. So, and if you ever have questions in the in-between, or you're reading the document and you have some questions, Mariana, Jeff, myself, we're happy to provide you some answers as well as you look through, in the in-between as well.
I just have a couple comments.
Yeah.
Number one, you keep talking about the 2 and 4% limits. That's a percentage limit, but it's not a dollar limit. Your budget this year was around 63 million, which is a 2% equals 1.2 million.
Yep.
And the 4 would be double that.
Yep.
So in a few years, it goes up to, say, your budget's 70 million.
Yep.
So that 2% is going to be twice as much as it was before.
Yep.
And so the dollar amount, because every year your budget goes up. Every year, that 2% and 4% dollar-wise is going to be increasing. So practically, over a number of years, you could have $5 to $10 million in that account.
Well,
right or wrong. Right or wrong.
To get to 5, just to use numbers, if we're at 63 million now, and that's about 2.5 million max, to get to 5 million, our budget would have to be 125 million. So I don't think that's happening in the near future. But in terms of,
I said 70 million, huh?
Yeah, you're talking cumulative in 2 years.
Yeah.
but the 4% of 70 million is 2.8 million.
280, right.
Yeah, so it's not. So to get to 5 or
But
10,
I'm saying
I mean,
as you
it's
go out in time.
as we go out in time, absolutely. So this is a conversation we're having at the Board of Ed. So I'm going to give you that. Do you have a percent or do you have a dollar? My view, my personal view, so this is not a Board of Ed view, my personal view is you have a percent. And the reason is when your budget, with inflation going up, and so costs are going up, your cushion that's needed will probably go up accordingly. So that boiler that was $100 and X thousand is going to be 100 and X plus
Well, you're talking
4%, 5%.
I'm not talking what ifs. And one of your comments was there's a lot of money in there. The unions
Yeah.
are going to say, well, how come we're not getting part of it? How about the taxpayers? How's that? Why don't they get their part of it too?
And yeah, so I think the 2 and 4, my personal view is the 2 and 4% is
Yeah.
too high. I don't know that all the Board of Ed members agree with that. So this is part of a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it'll help when we come back to you as we put those limits. I still believe in the percent, even if we lower it, because as our risk with inflation, inflation risk will go up, and so then that limit goes up. But it won't, I mean, 2 and 4%, if we're at 70 million, look, you might think 2.5 million is too high. I'd be in agreement with you on the 4%. But if we're at 70 million and it's 2.8 million, it's still too high. I mean, I don't know that, and to get to, so I'm not sure, like, we're not going to be at, 5 or 10 million.
What it should be is,
Let me just add one
you should
more
have
thing.
a dollar limit on that,
Well,
that 4%. So
yeah,
if you
John,
go over,
that's
say,
what
3 million,
That's what
whatever
we're
that
talking
number
about.
is, should go back to the town.
Well, that's where we're, again, the Board of Ed is discussing it, but let me make an important point. If we have $1 million left at the end of the year, we're doing something wrong. That's mismanagement of money. You have one of the best finance directors in the state sitting here, has been doing it for so many years.
Oh, I know that.
Is unbelievable. You've seen the numbers the last 3 years. You're no higher than, $12,000 sort of thing. So this was an anomaly, this year with the 200,000. We froze things. We don't want to keep having to freeze. That's impacting teachers and classrooms and students. So we should not be seeing big numbers at the end of the year. Otherwise, we're doing something wrong. That's just.
Well, my other comment too is, every year, as you go through your budget line item to line item, human nature being what it is, you're going to say, well, we have this fund that any excess will go into. So you're not going to be as diligent to keep spending down.
That's inaccurate.
I don't agree.
not how
You're
you
saying
budget.
it's not possible?
That's not how you budget.
We're not, my commitment, Jeff's commitment is, we're not going to inflate our budgetary needs in order to fund this account.
I didn't say inflate, I said not be as diligent to keep spending down.
We will always be diligent. These are taxpayer dollars.
Yeah,
I've been on the Board of Selectmen Board of Finance for 10 years.
yeah.
Last 8, and then 2 years, a few years before that. And I've seen the same argument year after year. And what happens, the budget, the whole budget, especially the Board of Education budget, goes up every year, and the mill rate goes up every year. The taxpayers, a lot of people are moving out of town because they can't afford the taxes. Because the driving of that is the Board of Education budget.
So we present, our Board of Education budget to the town. It gets voted on, and it's passed. It hasn't passed. The last time it didn't pass was many years ago. I remember going to the middle school trying to get a budget passed, and it took a few times. So, the town is voting for it. We are not, once we get to an agreement. So for me, there's two different parts. Once we agree upon our budget, just for argument's sake, $63 million, we have, most of that is staff and healthcare costs. And then there's utilities and some things. There's not a lot. Once we decide that we're going to spend $63 million and we can have a staff of 600, 300 teachers and paraprofessionals and custodians and stuff, and once we have a staff of, say, 600 people, that's what's been approved. We can't, now the challenge could be you don't need 600 people, but once it's been approved, that's what we're managing to. So to your point, in terms of us not, we present a budget, it goes, you guys deliberate, you provide your feedback, might lower it in total, and then it goes to the town for a vote, and it passes. So I don't know, if it didn't pass, then there's a challenge, but it does pass. And so.
By the time it gets to the town, it's going to pass. Because letters go out to all the parents, grandparents, that, you have to pass this budget. Because if you don't, it's going to go back and chances are it's going to be cut. And that's going to impact the students and the Board of Education. So everybody gets riled up, and it always has passed.
So John, I appreciate your frustration over the taxes going up all the time, but I think just for the purposes of this discussion, I think we want to kind of keep it to the non-lapsing fund. But just saying we don't want to and renegotiate the budget again. But I do think it's it's a very valid comment that as the budget just increases every year, you know, this non-lapsing fund could grow appreciably and could have a negative impact on the town's rating agency if
Yeah.
the
And-
right
and I-
parameters are not put in place.
Agreed. I mean, I think, I think Scott and Rich have talked about, us coming more often, so we'll have some discussions and, provide that feedback if you start seeing, like, you spent it on that, really? That wasn't what it's our decision, but you can influence us, and say, that's not what I expected, or why are you ending up every year, if you, other than this year, if you look, we had 1,000, 12,000, little amounts. If each year we're ending up 200,000, 400,000 in these big amounts, I mean, I think it's fair game. You should challenge us and say, why do you keep ending up with so much money? If you said you needed that for the budget and you keep ending up with all this extra money, what happened? So during the year, we should be saying, we froze this and this happened, we froze everything. So now there might be a chance we end up with a little more at the end because we can't predict it that precisely.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah.
So you have this fund,
Yep.
and it gets to the point where something comes up that you want to spend the money on.
Yep.
How about having you or Jeff come before the Board of Finance, even though we can't, vote it down, but just come to us and say, here's what we have, and this is what we would like to spend it on. What do you think?
Let us think about that. I just want to
Like a
process.
screening
it-
process.
Yeah, it's a fine line because it's a quote unquote Board of Ed decision, so it's making sure that we can get your thoughts on it.
Some input on.
So, your thoughts and input, but it is a Board of Ed decision ultimately. So
I know
that.
We have no
Let's-
decision-making authority on it, but I mean, it just seems like a transparency thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Seems
yeah.
like just-
Yeah, so let us as a board, look, to be fair, as a Board of Ed, we established this account a year or so ago, whatever it was. We literally just put money in it a month ago. We haven't thought through all of how does this all work. When we put in the limit, so the state has a limit of 2% for an annual. They don't have a top limit. And when we established the account, this Board of Ed has said, it seems crazy that it's just unlimited. There has to be some, so we just said, without a lot of thinking, we just said, well, let's just put double, so it's 2 years worth of savings, let's put 4%. So that's what we did in our policy, but we weren't required to do that. The state has it where it could be whatever we want. So we do need a little time to talk through what's the right amounts, what are we going to spend it on, and give us a little time and let us come back.
You could say, on that 4%, looking into the future, well, that 4% should never go over 5 million or 4 million. Give it a cap of a dollar amount.
We could, but that's way higher than we've just been discussing. So I don't want to talk about like the numbers like, well, my view is that's way too high. I don't want to go anywhere near those dollar amounts. Again, I'm giving you my opinion versus as a Board of Ed, just this is, in real time, we're still having these conversations. Why don't you let us come back probably and have this discussion in 2 months, I would say. We're in October, maybe in December. And we can come back in November. I'm just thinking we probably need a couple discussions and maybe something in real terms comes to us that says, hey, hopefully not, a boiler went and we need to replace it and we need to find those costs, and we're like, oh, we're going to use those funds. So I think we need time for things to transpire so we can see how we as a Board of Ed think about it. Rich?
Yeah, Eric. For the next get-together, I think it's probably best if the dust settles after the election. The December
right.
meetings are kind of breaking people in.
Right.
We got a lot of
right.
breaking in on
Yep.
this committee.
Yep.
The other thought is where you just mentioned that should something come up and we implement a freeze, I'm hoping that you don't need to implement freezes since you have this non-lapsing account, that you could go, whoops, we need to supplement now. And then not so much come to us to ask about it, but come to us to inform us that, yes, we had this situation come up, we needed to dig into the non-lapsing account, boom. You know, because we don't sit on your line items.
Yeah. I have a feeling, again, until some of this transpires, it's hard to know where it will, until we actually have real examples. But if we have something, just going to use round numbers, that came up, that could be $200,000, something comes up at $200,000. My personal, again, important, my personal opinion, have not discussed with the Board of Ed and get everyone's opinions, and it could change, but I wouldn't want to use all 200,000 in one shot on one thing. And the reason is going back to one of the reasons we want this account is if things, we don't want to come to you for an appropriation. So I want us to have a little cushion and flexibility that if something else happens later in the year, that we have some room. So we might want to not freeze supplies, but we might reduce how much, fund some from this account and then fund some from a reduction in supplies. Again, this is just my own thinking, so this is not just, we have not gotten to this point as a Board of Ed. But those are some of the things I don't want to use it all up. The boiler would have, basically wiped this almost completely out. And then if something else happened, we had no cushion left because we already, froze supplies. So it's something we need to think a little bit more through. But yes, it might not be freezing. One thing is it might not be freezing supplies. It might be reducing or, taking a 20% reduction or a 30% reduction, not 100% freeze or something like that. So that another option that's out there that we could be discussing. I think if that makes some sense.
It makes sense.
And it's something the Board of Ed we need to kind of talk through and have a real life example, I think, is the easiest way to talk it through.
Just out of curiosity, with the boiler,
Yeah,
where'd you come up with the money for that?
that's where we froze. That was part of freezing.
Part of the freezing.
Yeah, when we froze
Okay.
everything. The boiler actually literally froze the central office out. It was really cold. It was really cold in there for a few weeks. There were jackets in the office, but yes, that's all.
Yeah.
That's our one lever is
Yeah.
freeze supplies, and then the second lever is freezing any open. If a para leaves, we don't rehire, and that does have impact. But those are our two biggest options.
Thank you.
I just, since the deck will become part of our minutes and
Yep.
whatever, there is a comment in here in regard to fiscal year 22-23, saying the Board of Ed approached the Board of Finance with a need. And we went back and looked at all the, there was never a formal request for an appropriation. There was, at any of the meetings, there was never a formal request. I know we had a discussion early. when it was first
I
decided
had numerous discussions with the
first
former
selectman.
first selectman, who he's phenomenal. I'm not, but we kept being told, oh, you can't come now. You got to give it time, because if you come now, it looks like we didn't get the. It sends a bit. So there was a lot of whether we formally. I thought we sent. Do you remember? I don't remember. I thought we actually
We
did
went
send
back
I
and
thought we
looked at
sent a
all the
letter.
meeting minutes
We
and
provided
videos. So.
with a deficit every month, I feel. Every month we provided you with a deficit.
So
track.
we did,
Yes.
yeah, so we
Oh,
provided the
the-
deficit
Oh,
report.
definitely. We got
but-
those every time.
But
it
it
just-
wasn't the formal,
It
well, we
wasn't
can
the-
see, we were definitely given guidance not to ask for the appropriation and wait till December.
But
The message was keep working at it.
Yes,
Yeah.
keep
Not
working.
working at it.
It
Keep
should have come
it.
before
Yeah.
us.
No, we did. We came here, and the message was keep working at it. We could go back and watch video. I remember
Yeah.
hearing that a couple
Yeah.
times.
But there
My
wasn't a
point
formal
is that there was
request.
never a formal request for an
Wow.
appropriation. That's my only point.
I mean,
know that you updated
if
us
our
all the time.
learning, if the learning is that we need to formalize and ask for an appropriation, we can do that. We were trying to work through both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to say, we're in trouble. We're gonna, and we can't wait till December to solve that problem. We needed an answer, and the, see how you work it out. Well, the only way to see how it works it out is we have to freeze everything now. Otherwise, we were not going to solve it. It was too large. It was, $700,000.
Not
So
arguing
if the
anything,
learning
just
is that we
saying,
should put a formal request in for appropriation, hopefully we never have that again, but if we do, we can absolutely do that. So it's on the record, I guess.
that's fine.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Well, thank
very
you.
much.
So we'll,
Appreciate the,
for the
discussion.
November, so your November and December meeting are both impacted by the election? Okay,
Yeah, we meet on the second
November's
Wednesday.
better because December will be.
okay. Well, we can come back if, in November, especially if there's certain topic, but we can just go through a budget update. But if there's any topics or anything that you want to hear specifically, we can also add that to our update. Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Right. So next on the agenda is a report from our finance director, Mr. Gervais.
Alrighty. Let's go right down the road here. Everyone got a copy on Friday of the draft agenda and the meeting materials. Included in that was an Excel file that probably proved to be about 60 pages. I don't really know how to shrink that unless we can summarize, individual departments by line item. So that's something we can discuss. But there's 1,100 lines there in Excel. That's the budget versus actual. Next week we were having our first quarter budget meeting with department heads. So I'll give this so you can hear me. All right, now I can hear my echo, so now I know it's working. Sorry about that. So next week we were having department head meetings. Sorry, not department head meetings, budget meetings with department heads to go over first quarter 26, how the departments performed in fiscal 25, as well as submitting their 2027 capital projects, which is very exciting. So just going through the list, pension flash report. Everyone got an email of the entire report, but I just thought it would be appropriate to highlight page 7, which really gives the overview of the performance of our pension plan. Year to date, our pension plan is up $2.8 million. When we look at our benchmark over on the top left side of this paper here, you can see YTD, our portfolio has performed 8.9% against a blended benchmark of 10.3%. So we are lagging the benchmark. Matt Frattini and Chris Rollins are advisors of the pension plan. Every pension board meeting, they go through kind of why is this happening. You can see at the 3-year, right in the middle of that graph, we're at 10.7%, which is beating the benchmark of 10.3. There was a few of our managers that were kind of underperforming. It didn't really hit the hot topics that are really driving up the performance and returns in the market. So that's kind of why we're lagging that year to date. That's all I really have on this. Does anyone have any questions with regards to the pension? Just some other things to talk about with the pension plan. On the town side of things, in July, the UPSU union agreed to move over employees hired after July 1st, 2025 from the pension plan into the defined contribution plan. Everyone knows that as a 401k. Here in town, it's a 401a. So new employees hired after July 1st are automatically enrolled in the 401 and not in the pension plan. Employees that are currently working and are vested in the pension plan, we're working with our actuary right now to determine the value of their accrued benefit to date. Once we have that value of the accrued benefit, we'll meet with the individual employees. Their option is to freeze their pension plan, so they're able to just kind of say, okay, well, I have 11 years of service right now. My vested accrued benefit right now is, say, $1,100 a month. They can freeze that. They're not adding anything more to it. It's frozen until they retire at age 65 or 55 plus the years of service they need for early eligibility. But so, we're switching that union, our largest union in town, from the DB to a DC to more clearly get a better budget handle on the retirement number. Whereas, depending on how this pension plan does, the gains and losses are amortized over 10 years. That impacts how much we contribute as a town to this plan. So by moving the newer employees out of the plan, that should be reducing our liability long term and reducing that contribution we have to make.
We, just double checking where we stand. I know the Board of Selectmen needs to update the pension ordinance.
Yep.
So
we have a meeting with Virginia McGarity, the pension plan attorney from Robinson and Cole, next week on the 15th to go over some topics, some other issues that have popped up. And with this change to the union contract, we're actually going to amend the pension plan, right, to encompass the change to UPSU. So we're working on her. There's 3 topics we're working on. Yep.
And we're looking for suggestions for who the right person. Looking for suggestions for who the right person to appoint to the pension board. So we're working on that.
So, Kevin, for the grandfathered employees,
Mm-hmm.
do they still have an option to stay in the pension plan, or they're getting shifted over to the defined contribution, and then their
They can
pension
stay in.
plan is they can stay on?
Yep, there's an
Do they
option
have
for them
a
to
choice?
stay, they're grandfathered in. They can continue to accrue a benefit in that plan, or they can choose to freeze that benefit. They can choose to sell that benefit and transfer the funds from one trust to
So
another.
enroll it.
There's 4 options they can
Okay.
choose. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so no questions on the pension plan. We will move to the local cannabis tax report. We have good news to report. It appears that we just got a report this afternoon from the state of Connecticut for July and August. July's numbers 159,782. August's numbers 162,798. Those are pretty close. So if that's going to be, the average, we're looking at nearly 5,000 a month, not the projection of less than 4,000 a month. I think I projected last month, 3,900. But at 4,800, that's another $12,000 in that line. So at this point, when these 2 checks come in, the projects we appropriated at the Board of Selectmen level will be fully available to be spent because we'll have the funding. Any questions on the local cannabis tax? All right, next up is the fund balance projection. Nothing has changed there. But I just provide this every meeting in case there is changes. There was a report I believe I shared earlier in the month outlining the Board of Ed's return to fund balance over the last decade, I believe I did, and just really that kind of outlined going forward in the future, 70% of our budget essentially, whatever savings is no longer going to that fund balance, right? So I think in the next budget, we really need to, look at GFOA best practice on setting money aside for contingencies, but also building that fund balance, right? And making sure we're hitting those milestones that they want us to hit of 1%, and just kind of really examining that to make sure we're following, GFOA best practices on maintaining that fund balance and building it. So because even if we maintain the same exact dollar amount for a fund balance, every year as the budget grows, that fund balance is shrinking because it's a percentage of revenue. So just something to keep in mind for the listeners at home. All right, and I do have one more piece of information that I requested from our tax collector's office, just to give everyone some perspective on where we are collections year to date. So as of 9/25/25, we collected 55.56% of our taxes. Last year, same time, it's 55.39. So we are running 17 basis points ahead of last year. So it's always good when the trending is going higher collections as opposed to, dwindling collections. That is all I had for my finance director's report. Let me just go over my notes real quick here. As I mentioned, budget meetings are next week with the department heads. We're really solidifying the capital projects for the upcoming year, and just getting ready for the upcoming budget year.
And I know the last couple of weeks ago, you were spending all your time with the auditors.
Yes. Yep. So we had a meeting today with the auditors at 2:00. We canceled it. We moved it to next week at Tuesday at 2, I believe it is. There's a few open items. There's a lot of open items actually right now at the moment. I can email everyone a report of what the open item request list is. We'll do that tomorrow before we go for vacation. Open item request list. So,
And I know I was away when the auditor wanted to have a call, so.
did you get that done or no?
No.
Oh,
So
okay.
we need to,
Yep, we can schedule that too. It's the annual fraud questionnaire.
yes.
Yep. Schedule misses. But we are holding to our plan is to have the 24 audit completed 12/31/2024. So our auditors have said to us, as we trickle work into them, they're dedicating work or resources every week. As we submit our work to the auditors, they will start turning through it and sending us requests on that. So
Okay, anyone have any questions for Kevin? On to new business. Review appoint CIP committee members. I'm not sure that,
the Board of Selectmen did not. They tabled this. So I think at this point it's just
I think we'll have to-
informational.
yeah, we'll have to wait until after the election
Mhm.
because typically it's some Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Ed.
Correct. Yep.
So,
So so it's really just, I think what I'll end up doing is just compressing the timeline. So we'll just have to have a few more meetings kind of spread out. So
all right, next is public discussion. We have no public. Next, board comments. Anyone have anything for the group? No? Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you very much, everyone.